The sound of his daughter's laughter echoed through his phone speaker, but Mike couldn't bring himself to smile. "I'll be home soon, sweetie. Promise." He ended the call and stared at the leaking pipes above him, wondering how many more side jobs it would take before he could finally give Emma the life she deserved. If you've ever felt like you were drowning despite working harder than everyone around you, this story might just give you hope. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to see more real stories that remind us how quickly life can change when we least expect it. Mike Sullivan wiped sweat from his brow as he tightened another pipe fitting in the cramped basement of his neighbor's house. The concrete floor dug into his knees, and the persistent drip of water had soaked through his shirt hours ago. At 42, his body protested these weekend jobs more than it used to, but he didn't have a choice. Not with Emma's school tuition due next month. "I brought you some coffee," called a voice from the stairs. "Thought you might need it." Mike glanced up to see Sarah Matthews descending with a steaming mug. She was relatively new to the neighborhood, moved in about 6 months ago, but they'd exchanged pleasantries over their shared fence line enough times that when her basement started flooding, she'd asked if he knew anyone who could help. He'd volunteered himself. "You're a lifesaver," he said, accepting the mug gratefully. The warmth spread through his calloused hands. Sarah leaned against the washing machine, watching him work. She was in her late 30s with kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. "How's Emma doing? Still obsessed with those science experiments?" Mike couldn't help but smile. "More than ever. Last week she turned our kitchen into what she called a polymer laboratory. Took me 3 hours to clean up the slime. She sounds amazing." "She is." His smile faded slightly. "Too smart for her own good sometimes. Her teacher thinks she should be in that advanced program across town, but—" He trailed off, focusing intently on the pipe. Sarah seemed to understand what remained unsaid. The advanced program cost money Mike didn't have. "How long have you been doing this alone?" she asked suddenly. Mike's wrench slipped, clanging against the pipe. It wasn't the question itself that caught him off guard. People often asked about Emma's mother, but something in Sarah's tone felt different. Not pitying, but genuinely curious. "For years," he answered, returning to his work. "Cancer." Emma was 8. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry. We manage." It was his standard response. "Practiced. Safe. I'm sure you do more than manage. Emma is clearly thriving." She paused. "But who takes care of you, Mike?" The question hung in the damp basement air. Mike's hands stilled on the pipe. In 4 years, no one had ever asked him that. "I don't need taking care of," he said automatically. Sarah's laugh was soft. "Everyone needs someone, Mike. Even superheroes." He turned to look at her then, really look at her. There was something in her expression, understanding, perhaps, that made his carefully constructed walls waver. "I'm an educational therapist," she continued. "I work with that advanced program you mentioned. I could talk to them about Emma." Mike's pride flared. "We don't need charity. It's not charity. It's a scholarship program that goes unused every year because people don't know about it." She set her mug down. "And maybe I've been looking for a way to talk to you about something else too." "What's that?" he asked, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "Dinner. With me. Just adults talking." "When was the last time you did that?" Mike couldn't remember. Between his full-time construction job, Emma's activities, and these weekend repair gigs, his life had become a relentless cycle of responsibility. "I don't know if I can," he said honestly. "You can bring Emma. I make a mean mac and cheese." She smiled. "Or she can show me her latest science experiment." No pressure. Something shifted in Mike's chest, a loosening of a knot he hadn't realized was there. That dinner changed everything. Emma and Sarah bonded instantly over their shared love of science. Sarah helped Emma apply for the scholarship program, and to Mike's amazement, his daughter was accepted with a full ride. But the real transformation was in Mike himself. For years, he'd defined himself solely as Emma's father, a role he cherished but one that had consumed his entire identity. With Sarah, he rediscovered parts of himself he thought were long buried: his laugh, his dreams, his capacity to care for someone new. Their relationship developed slowly, built on Sunday dinners and late-night conversations after Emma went to bed. Sarah never tried to replace Emma's mother but created her own unique bond with the girl. She attended science fairs and helped with homework, offering a different perspective that complemented Mike's practical approach to parenting. 6 months after that day in the basement, Mike faced another leaking pipe, this time in his own home. As water sprayed across his kitchen, he did something he wouldn't have done before: he called Sarah for help. She arrived with takeout and tools, and together they fixed the pipe, laughing as they got soaked. That night, as they sat on his porch swing, Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder. "Remember when I asked who takes care of you?" she said softly. Mike nodded, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. "I'd like to be that person," she whispered. "If you'll let me." The words hung between them, full of possibility. For so long, Mike had convinced himself that being strong meant standing alone. That asking for help somehow diminished his worth as a father, as a man. But Sarah had shown him a different kind of strength, the courage to let someone in. "I think I'd like that," he finally said, his voice rough with emotion. 2 years later, Mike stood in a different basement, their basement. The house they'd bought together had enough room for Emma's science lab, Sarah's home office, and the nursery they were preparing for the baby due in spring. As he installed shelving, he heard footsteps on the stairs. Sarah appeared, her hand resting on her growing belly. "Need any help down here, Mr. Sullivan?" she asked with a smile. Mike set down his drill and crossed to her, placing his hand over hers. "Mrs. Sullivan, I think we've got everything under control." Emma's voice called from upstairs, announcing her latest experimental success. They both laughed, sharing a look of parental pride and exasperation. "You know," Sarah said, "sometimes I think about that day in my old basement. How close we came to never having this." Mike nodded, remembering his hesitation, his fear. One question changed everything. "Who takes care of you, Mike?" Sarah repeated her words from that day. He pulled her close, feeling the baby kick between them. "You do. And I take care of you. And together we take care of them." He nodded toward Sarah's belly and then upstairs where Emma was still excitedly explaining her experiment to no one in particular. "That's what family is," Sarah agreed. As they climbed the stairs together to see Emma's latest creation, Mike reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a lonely single dad drowning in responsibility to a man surrounded by love and possibility. All because his neighbor had seen past his carefully constructed facade and asked the one question no one else had thought to ask. Sometimes the biggest changes in life begin with the smallest moments: a leaky pipe, a cup of coffee, and a question that opens the door to everything you never knew you needed. Life doesn't always give us what we expect, but sometimes it gives us exactly what we need. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us how connection can transform our lives in unexpected ways. Remember, it only takes one moment, one question, to change everything.